Hello. Oh, hello and welcome to sim.vc where it is around 13:59. So yeah, 2. It's 2. It's 2 in the afternoon, 14, okay? And yesterday I had a bit of this celebration because of the video yet again. Yay! Okay, so now I have had the pre-celebration, the celebration, and now the post-celebration. It's all going according to plan. Problem with enjoying stuff you're doing correctly. You should take some time out of your day to actually celebrate and enjoy the things your milestones. Not only work towards them, have them, and then set a new one. Because if you don't enjoy them, then what's the point of actually getting to it in the first place? Actually, something similar that I said to a friend of mine quite recently. He like me is working a lot in school and working not overtime because you can't because it's school, but you know what I mean. Putting in a lot of hours, and I just sat down, had a chat with him, and it just struck me that why are we doing all of this? I mean, that we're studying, it's fine, it's good. It's good that we're studying, don't get me wrong. Why are we at university? That's also a good point. That's not a good point. I mean, it's obvious why we are at university. We like to study and we really love the stuff we're doing and we educate ourselves. But why are we so stressed when we don't have anything to stress about? Because we've already studied, we've already done the work. Why are we stressing now? Why are we focusing so much on school when we're not in school and we're not doing homework? And I just told him because he says, as I said, he's like me, so it's quite stressful at times. So he said like, why don't we go out and go for a swing in the park? And he just looked at me like, excuse me, what? Go for a swing? And I was like, yeah, go for a swing. Because really, at least why I am educating myself is because when I was a kid, I was about, I don't even remember, I was in the third grade. How old are you in the third grade? 10? 9, 10? Something like that. And I remember that my mom so asked me like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And always said like, I want to work in a bank, I want to handle money. And one of the reasons was because I was going to be able to pay my own rent because I didn't know how to do that when I was 10. So I thought as long as I have a job, I will get an income, and as long as I work at the bank, I will know how to pay my rent and all my bills. So then I will know how to use my income. That means I won't, get thrown out of my apartment or house or so and such. So I already had that in mind. But another thing I had in mind was that I want to become successful. Why? Well, not because of the money thing, but because I want to have time off to play. Isn't that what any kid wants? I mean, really, if you go out and ask any kid ever about what you want to do when you grow up, it's probably something like, "Oh, I want to be rich." Why do you want to be rich? Well, it's not necessarily because they want to have money. Same in my case. I don't necessarily want money. Money isn't the big thing. What I want is the free time to play. Because that's what I did when I was a kid. That's what I enjoyed. And ever since, I've been striving towards, trying to have the free time and the leisure time to go out and play in the woods, play with sticks, have stick fights, or run around, play basketball, play football, or whatever. So just a fun little anecdote that it struck me that I should be able to celebrate my, milestones and not only work towards them, but actually appreciate them when they come. And not only that, but I shouldn't stress so much about school because, if I'm always stressing about school when I'm not in school, then why am I in school for? Am I in school to become, educated so that I can get a good job so that I will have enough money to do what I want on my free time so that I don't have to stress? Isn't that the point? As I said, just a small anecdote, just a small thing that I talked about with my friend. Anyway, going back to what I was thinking about talking about today, and I see I've already talked over half of the time, but let's see. I was thinking about talking about hedging, and now let's see. In the end of the statement, we all know someone who does this, and that is say, in my opinion. And now, in my opinion, no, but I would say that's double hedging. Because if you say something, you're hedging. Of course you are. You're not just going to say, that's false. You're going to say, that's false, most likely, or that's false, isn't it? And when you say that, it's all fine, it's all good, because I've been taught in school, in seminars, that if you are in a meeting, you should hedge, because you shouldn't come across like arrogant and a jerk, which is all good, all fine. But what I don't like is when people are hedging at the wrong time, or when people are double hedging. And what I mean is, if you sit in school, everybody know that what you're gonna say when you ask something or when you're answering a question is already your opinion. And it's very interesting when, or for me, it's very irritating when people say, it might be this, isn't it? So they're hedging. And then they end with saying, but that's just my opinion. Because you have hedged in the thing you've said, like, isn't it? But then you also add, in my opinion. And it makes you look so insecure, like if this is wrong, it's not your fault, so to say. You're trying to buy yourself an out, which I think is ludicrous in university, because you are trained and you're like, you study in order to know this. Sure enough, you're here to fail and make mistakes and learn, but you should at least sound confident when you say it, because I know that I had it, like during the entirety of my high school, I always ended with, isn't it, but in Swedish. And it's so bad, isn't it? Anyway, so I'm going to, or it is. So I'm going to talk a bit about hedging. So in my opinion, saying that it's like double hedging, yeah, saying in my opinion is double hedging. That basically means that you are so insecure about your own opinion that you have to state that your opinion is your own. Double hedging, using it is wrong. And now I have some different examples here. First one, just to get you in what hedging is. There might just be a few insignificant problems we need to address. And that's saying insignificant instead of saying there might be a few problems we need to address. Because that might inquire, or that might say that, well, it's not that big of a deal, it's open to your interpretation, should we do this, should we not? Please, I'll take your opinion into consideration. Second example I have is that the party was somewhat spoiled by the return of the parents, instead of saying the party was spoiled by the return of the parents. Because then again, you're hedging, saying somewhat, not saying that it was completely whacked to crap just because they came back, but it was worse. I'm not an expert, but also a hedging word, and that's false, isn't it? One that I took up before. Now, the pure definition, the theoretical definition, at least according to Wikipedia, which is not the most source critical site, but I'm going to use it anyway because it was the first one I found. Otherwise, hedging was just hedge funds and such. So, the definition of hedge is a mitigating word, sound, or construction used to lessen the impact of an utterance due to constraints on the interaction between the speaker and addresser, such as politeness, softening the blow, avoiding the appearance of bargaining or bragging, and others. Now, this is all fine and dandy, as I said, and now that we know what hedging is, and you know my opinion of it, or my perspective on it, I'm going to yet again iterate on the problems, let's say, that I find with it. And that is when you say all of these examples, for instance, and you have this, isn't it, or in my opinion, or I'm not an expert, but, or it's somewhat, that's all fine, that's all good, because that's, you being nice. But then you also add, in the end, at least that's just my opinion. And when you say, well, it's also the undermining that you say, it's just my opinion. Because then you mean that, well, for me, that is the listener. And it's all about networking, This is my perception of you. And if you say it's just my opinion, then how trustworthy does that make you feel? Like, will I think that you are trustworthy if you say it's just my opinion? Shouldn't you say it's my opinion? Because that's okay with ending, to end with. Saying like, and that is my opinion. Instead of saying, but that's just my opinion, or that's my opinion. But to say, and it's also the way that you say it, but if you're clearly stating, it's my opinion, this is what I think, this is what I deem to be correct. If that message comes across, then you're not double hedging. However, if you say, but that's just my opinion in the end, that could be like, well, if it's, it's just my opinion, I don't really know. It's not based in any facts, I'm not confident in this. That makes me get irritated, because that's like, then why did you utter this in the to begin with. And yet again, I would like to stress that hedging is fine as long as you're not double hedging. And that's why I'm really trying to get the message across. And I know that this is quite complex because this is something that I've been thinking about, something that I firmly believe exists in everyday life, and something that I'm irritated by or get irritated by. So, double hedging. Summarize, not a good thing. What is the difference between hedging and double hedging then? Hedging is when you're just nice, so you try to say like, isn't it somewhat, I'm not an expert in, but you just do it once and then you state the opinion. Double hedging is when you start with saying, like when you are hedging normally to be polite, but then you add another hedging. The double hedging makes me feel like you don't know what you're talking about. It feels like you haven't checked this with facts. You're not just here in order to be polite, or here, you're not just saying this in order to be polite. You're also saying it because you don't know better, which makes you lack credibility in my point of view. I would also like to add, before I leave, in the end here, that it's very important to celebrate stuff when you manage to get to them, which I stated in the beginning of the video. Completely unrelated to double hedging. And that you shouldn't stress about your job too much. Just remember that when you were a kid and set this goal, what you want to be in life, it was probably because you would have more time over to do stuff that you actually like running around in the woods, riding a bike, playing with your friends and such. So try to take a bit of time out of your ordinary everyday life and do the things you would do when you were a kid. You will probably most likely find that it's quite relieving of stress. So have a nice day, guys. Until tomorrow. Bye.